Good evening. Everyone is on. Praise God. We are back. Words for the soul. We are on week 119. Yay. Woo woo. Mara said, yay. I know, like that energy. I love it. We are so excited. Words for the soul come to enhance, to let you know that you're loved, that God has chosen you, that you have a purpose. Hey, I hear some good voices in the background. That's okay. We're so honored we are here to have Louie and Myra with us today as we're talking about relationships, to elevate our relationships, elevate your relationship. It's time for us to elevate, to go higher, to deepen it in every area. And so we're excited. We have guests. My guest, for those who do not know him, that may be tuning in for the first time to True Vine Church or to our YouTube page, is my fabulous husband over 34 years. Bishop, you want to introduce yourself, and then we have other guests. Go ahead.
I'm her fabulous husband.
You are that. Are you gonna say anything else?
Oh, you said anything else? I don't know what to say.
Okay, yeah. All right. Louie and Marwa, if y'all would introduce yourselves, and then we'll go on from there.
Louie Rodriguez, and Mara, I'll let her talk about herself. I think I'm 38. I lose track, but
Don't feel bad.
We've been married for 9 years. We have a kid right here that's probably gonna inject himself into the conversation. But Santos is our youngest at 1. We have Nico.
There she go.
Or he's about to turn 1 on Wednesday.
There you
go. His godfather, Bishop. Or actually, no, that's Nico. Sorry, see?
Nico.
That's the lack of sleep that Santos is giving me right now.
Santos is definitely going to be part of the program.
But Nico's 4, Elsie just turned 8. So anything that we can do, we're blessed with these opportunities to give back, especially when we feel like we're in seasons of desert and seasons of thirst for a lot of different things. A lot of different of our own personal love languages. I think that there's an opportunity for us to just be vulnerable and open and transparent to share, because if we're going through something, likely one of you all that's listening is possibly going through the same thing, and we would be honored to at least share our challenges in hopes that we can help and bless others, because we've certainly received the blessings of other people's testimonies along the way. So, Mana?
I'm just happy I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. I feel like just participating in these kind of things help us to level up, to get to the higher, elevate our relationship. And we've been reflecting, a friend and I, on this concept of ground to overhead, which I won't go all into, but it's relevant in that the concept of vulnerability and humility, like the root word of humility, humus, like the ground, from dust, we come to dust, we return, vulnerability, like the root word is, like, I forget what the Latin word is, but it's to be wounded. Like, so the concept of we have to be able to be so in the ground, so humble, so down low, in order that God can lift us up and raise us up to even higher levels. So I'm happy.
I love that.
Grateful to be here.
All right. So as we're starting out, I used to welcome those who are on so far. I thank God. I saw Vaughn is on, Minister Vaughn is on, Pastor Sheila, thank you for being on. Barbara Kendrick, hey family. Good to see you. Sonia Johnson is on. Hi, Sonia. And those, don't forget to like, tag, and share. We're so excited for what God is going to be talking about. We're elevating our relationships. This can be in a friendship, courting, those who are dating, those who have been married for a while, or those who in different relationships. This is going to be good information. But before we start that, we're going to talk a little bit about Sankofa and why we have to look back in order to move forward. Bishop, if you would share a little bit about that.
You just keep stealing my thunder.
Okay.
Okay. Sankofa is normally seen as a bird where the body is look like it's moving forward, but the head is backwards. Sometimes sitting on the egg, sometimes the egg is in the beak. And it's the gentle reminder that life is very precious. Under too much stress, you can squash that egg and break the egg. But we can move forward, but understanding by looking back. And so when I teach it, I call it the double vision.
Okay.
Got to be able to have that double vision. Life is lived moving forward, but understood looking back.
All right. Beautiful. And with that, we're going to go to our first question. And Myra had kind of brought that up about vulnerability versus defensiveness. And what does that mean? Especially in this hour, say we're going to elevate our relationships. So Myra, since you are ready to get into that, we're going to open up with you guys and then we'll follow up after you.
Well, it's been really interesting, humbling, because Louie and I, we've been in counseling now every other week for the most part since
feels like over 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years since we miscarried. Like that was kind of, we started right around that time. And when we are in counseling, there's been a few times where in our sessions, the counselor has called me out, and it hasn't happened like frequently, I think, which is why it stands out extra to me, because she will say, okay, now was there a reason? Do you know why you responded defensively there? Okay. And I'm like, oh, wow, because it doesn't happen that much. So I think that's a good thing, but it does happen. And so when she speaks, she senses it, and it makes me step back to say, well, what was it that, wow, okay, yeah, this is, and there's so much good that can come from reflecting on that. Cause a lot of times, like I didn't even realize it because I was so caught up in the moment. But she, one thing that more recently she had called out was my energy. She said, she could like feel my energy, and versus when you've healed, right? When you're looking back and you're talking about something from the past, you've worked through it, you've healed, and you can talk about it. There's no defensiveness needed. But when it hasn't been fully healed, it hasn't been fully processed, you're still kind of hanging on and like feeling like you have to defend yourself. And as long as you're in that place, I think that there's walls up, there's hardened parts, which is obviously an indicator of deeper wounds, right? Underlying wounds that perhaps you haven't been able to be vulnerable enough and be open enough to put before the Lord, to humble yourself, to say, okay, Lord, what is here? I think for me, a struggle I have a lot of times is pride, as far as I shouldn't be hurt. Like I should be past it. I shouldn't be affected by that. Therefore, just stuff it down and like grit through and white knuckle it and be okay. But that actually stunts the healing process. And so what is well-intentioned often, like, I think, I just suck it up. Like that shouldn't bother me. I'm so weak, too sensitive. But then what happens is this ugliness, it's like there's an infection that happens, and that results in me being defensive because it wasn't fully healed. And then this energy, and it can be like ugly, like bitterness, resentment. It's like, why? What happened? Yeah. And a lot of times it's just because I didn't allow myself to say, I was hurt by this. Like it could be as simple as that. And that's what vulnerability is. Right. I didn't want to admit, whether I should or shouldn't have. When you said this, it really hurt me. That's vulnerability and humility. And I think that the defensiveness is when we get the armor on.
Yes.
So that's the best way I could kind of explain it, understand that.
I like that because, a lot of times, Louie, and I'll let you go next. Sometimes we as strong women like to be so strong, and we just have to be like, I'm there and I can handle this, and not allow ourselves to say, you know what, I may not have. I know Bishop will say sometimes, well, you weren't so kind to me. You're really kind of cranky. And then I have to come back and say, you know what? As I look and reflect about how I responded to you, I'm sorry because I was wrong. And then sometimes for me, I notice it may be my hormones that day. I may have just been a stressful day at work or just tired. And sometimes it just depends on different aspects of what's going on in life that I can become defensive for no reason. Sometimes we may have a good reason because they've said something, but sometimes he could just say hello and I'd be like, it has nothing to do with what he said. If we're going to be truthful, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can become defensive for no reason. And it just may be something that triggered something that was said or I thought during that time of our conversation. So that's just wonderful. Thank you, Camille, for joining us, and Sly for joining us. We, Sonia, I share with her, we are talking about elevating your relationship. So thank you. So Louis, go ahead and share what you want, and Bishop, we put it in your hands. Yes.
So I guess what I would add to it, and Mara was touching on it, so I kind of just jotted down some notes, kind of working off of Bishop, what you said with the double vision. I think when we react, which obviously is going to likely result in the defensiveness approach, that's kind of the single vision. And the ability to have the double vision would really be a testament to having the consistent prayer time for both people, like their own home base. And I know that I can be inconsistent in that, and that will likely result in me being defensive in those moments because I don't have the every morning. Usually that's when I am consistent. It's my morning time. I handle that in the morning where I'm reflective, jot down a couple notes maybe, but be intentional with that time to be able to reflect on last night's argument, last night when I felt like I was being pinched in a corner or whatever, that, you know, that energy that Mata talked about. But again, speaking to, that's where you'd allow God to work with you to have that double vision and being able to bring that vulnerability into the conversation that is uncomfortable because you have to reveal the fact, like Mata said, there's wounds that haven't been dealt with, and they could go as far back as childhood. And sorry about that.
Okay.
And those things are hard to say sometimes to be able to as an adult, as a husband, as a father, to be able to say it's childhood related things, big or small, that are just impacting you and causing you, you know, I'll give you an example. Many times I tell Mara, you know, the way I was the youngest, sometimes simple things as my sisters mainly, I would feel bullied because they would just say, go do this and go do that and come over here, come downstairs and then go do this for me, give me some ice. And so if my wife is asking me to do something, I may fall back into those shoes in the moment, get triggered, and respond in a way that really goes back to something like that I just haven't talked through or asked God, you know, how can you help me grow out of such a childish mindset in the moment? Not to say that I'm going to get it perfect every single time, but just to be honest and like, and there's obviously more difficult, challenging ones, but that's a simple example as to how that single, the single vision versus double vision. And I would say, so if I were to just emphasize one part, it requires that consistent reflection and prayer time. So if you have that home base for both, and it can't just be one. Mata's better at that discipline than I am, so she can have her home base more on in a consistent daily routine.
Mhm.
And because we are one,
Right.
the fact that I can be non-consistent, that doesn't matter. We're both one, so we're going to be the weakest link is me, and so both people have to be on their game to benefit from that double vision.
Beautiful.
Yes, praise the Lord. I just have a wonderful example of how defensiveness just kicked in just a few minutes ago. I had my phone where I wanted my phone. She took it and put it where she wanted it. Now, let me tell you where that defensiveness came in. As a child, I stuttered, and people tried to finish my sentence.
Mhm.
And when somebody does what I don't want them to do, I give instinctively defensive. And that was a prime example.
Yeah.
I put the phone where I wanted. She didn't ask us to move it. She just moved it where she wanted to move it. Took me right back into the mode. That's a trigger. You do what I don't want done, and I get defensive. And so that was it was a perfect example. Richo put my phone down, I'm like, no, and I pulled it back. I put it where I want it. If you want to move it, ask me if it's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
When you do that, and that puts me in the mode, I get defensive. It's like finishing my sentence.
Mhm.
It's like, I don't want you to do that. Let me have the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so the bully woman over here, I called her a bully this morning. She is we have to learn that people have the space
Yes.
and respect their space. If not, what you get is a defensive posture or defensive action.
That's good.
Yeah, that was really good. You just did that.
Thank you. I know. So that way you would look up. And
That's it. You want me to be myself, and then you try to be what you are.
So we had to get a good example.
Yes.
Look at him. Oh, he's so
yeah,
good.
He made a cameo.
Hello.
Look, that cameo.
Love it. Love it.
Uh-huh.
So we were talking about as far as
Well,
defensiveness
we
and
finished.
no, I know, and vulnerability.
Right.
So if you want to share some more about that, you gave a wonderful example about the phone.
Well, and that vulnerability too is to be able to talk about those things and not hide it.
Right.
Yeah. And I could go on more, but I think you can say yours piece.
You know, but that's how we deepen our communication, when we can stay in the conversation and not change the subject. And we talked about that. When you can stay in the subject that's not always comfortable, then you can say, you know what, we're elevating because we are going to deal with the thing at hand.
And recognizing your triggers, because that was a trigger.
Yeah.
Instantly, I just snatched it right back to put it where I wanted.
Yeah.
But what caused you to put it over there?
Oh, because you were looking down a lot.
I was actually in thought.
Oh, okay.
And then you put me out of my thought process.
See, we give good examples.
Yeah.
So if we are going to work on elevating our relationships, number 2, how do we communicate that in our relationships? Thank you. And as we're doing that, sometimes we have to identify if there's a broken part inside of us, because there could be something that is triggering. We're talking about something that happened when we were a child that has not been dealt with. And so go ahead. You say something?
You just said something. I didn't know that was a trigger till later on. Because I got so used to doing it and getting upset. But as a child, you can't become visibly upset because people then do something. They're going to correct you. You're going to get spanked. You're going to get something, right? So you suffer inside them. But the older I got, the more vocal I became.
Right.
But it came out as anger.
So, but that's where you learn. So I love that. So when you need to identify whatever those parts that may be broken inside of us, that's one thing. We may need to identify the broken parts in our environment where we lived at. It could be, Tanya put that up there. Thank you, Tanya. It could be our broken parts. There it goes. Identify the broken parts in the environment that we spend our time in. Take ownership and ask God to fix those broken parts in us.
Oh, that was the way that Isaiah came in.
Yeah, you cannot control what others do. And that's something, because we've been married 34 years. Dating, it would be a total of 37, 38 years. We're learning 39 years. See, but in doing that, you learn to communicate. You learn, even after 39 years, there's still things that you continue to learn, and things that you didn't know triggered you until you get into another place in your life. So you have to be willing to do that.
But also some things can be culturally.
Oh, that's a good one.
For instance, The other day was laying on the couch, you tap it with your foot. You remember that?
Oh yeah, that was something.
You want to go into that?
Okay, we're gonna share. Then you guys go next. So we were laid on the couch, and so
My head was towards the bottom of her feet.
and we were watching movies, and I was going like this. This is like my foot, and I was going like this to him.
In my head.
Oh, right here, right here. Was it right here? Right here? Right here. Okay, right here. But this is my foot, and and I wasn't doing to do anything. I didn't think anything of it. I don't know. And he said, "Do you know, in my culture, that means something?" And I said,
No,
"Wow."
I said, in my culture, when you use your foot
Uh-huh.
to do harm to somebody else.
Uh-huh.
And I said, yeah, let me just say how it is.
Yeah.
You use a foot to kick a dog, but not a person.
Right.
Right. So when she used her foot, like it wasn't a kick.
No.
She kept tapping my head with her foot. And I just hear my dad say, you use your foot to kick a dog and not the person. Right. And so I took it
Yes.
offensively.
He did.
Not offensive. I brought it as an attention.
Yes.
It was nagging me.
And I was like, "Whoa, where that came from?" And then he shared, and I said, "Oh, I didn't mean to do it like that."
Camille, can you join in on that one?
And I guess that's an island thing, because I never,
Yes,
never.
it is an island thing.
And I was like, but so in knowing so, then I said, okay, then I'm sorry, but it was just like being fun, but nothing serious.
I didn't respond harsh.
No, you
I just,
didn't.
I just explained why that was annoying.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, and she thought she was being loving. She was negating that bank. The love bank was going. She was in a deficit before the night was out.
Woo! It's good to be transparent. That's what we're talking about. So, Louie and Myra, and did you want to say anything else on that?
About the communication. Well,
Yeah.
let them go and we come back.
Okay. So, would you like to say anything about communicating in our relationships?
So Camille's being silent, so she's not helping me out. Okay, praise the Lord.
I did want to say, I don't know whether it's in the lines of communication, but just one thing, Bishop, you said, about the angry thing, about it comes out as that. I totally relate. That's a lot of times that's what happens to me, to where my response is of anger. But I wanted to tie it to the quote that you guys put, the take ownership part, because one thing is being able to identify the root cause, but then you can, if you just identify it, it becomes an excuse.
Right.
If you identify it and work on it, and then you take ownership, then you're able to say, okay, now what can I do? Regardless if in my mind, like my mind wants to put me in the victim slot, to where I feel like now this is a part of who I am because of these things, and I can share these things to be able to argue this is why I'm reacting like this. Again, that will limit us, but the ownership part would be like, okay, no matter what, I know that this is not the right response, and so I have to overcome it by taking ownership and working on things to better that. And in terms of communication, I'll hand it over to Madate.
Before you do that, Myra, real quick, Pastor Sheila has said, but can't something be annoying without it coming from a specific place? Yes. Go ahead.
However,
Mhm.
I push back into that.
Okay.
There's a reason why something is annoying us. It comes from a place
of a history or something that's
It
broken.
could be it's a trigger, a brokenness. It's something, because a lot of things happen in life that's annoying to people, not annoying to me.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
And it doesn't bother me. But if it's bothering you, there's usually coming from a place. Now, sometimes you just be an annoying person. You know, like going to the airport and have that child, you're trying to go to sleep, and that child keeps kicking the foot of the back of the seat. Yeah, that can be annoying, right? Because you're trying to rest. However, usually if something is annoying in a home environment, work environment, or school environment, there might be an area you might want to tap into.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Myra.
Communication.
Okay, communication. Well, all right. So I'm gonna try to go from what you're saying into communication. The first thing I was just thinking of is I've heard recently, well, not recently, but it's never gone away. It stayed with me because I challenged it the first time I heard it, was nothing will ever bother you. Like when you're in right relationship with God, like when you're really good, like you are really good with the Lord, like you're in the what you like good relationship, he's priority, nothing will bother you. And I remember hearing that statement. I was like, that's an absolute statement. Like I had so much rebellion against it. Like that's not true. And but it was talking about the concept of my irritability, like my tendency towards like I'm gonna be more irritable if my relationship with the Lord isn't as strong. And sure enough, like I was just driving and it was like I had like 2 different times back to back where I could see I had such a good prayer time. Like it was like I had more than enough. Like I really made that the strong part of my day. Then I go in the car, I'm in traffic. I'm like, it's okay. But then those times when I have not, and I'm in traffic,
Right.
like, why would you do? You know, like and
Yes.
the road rage comes out.
Yes.
So just that, because again, I think this is all connected. And then going into communication, because and I love the image of the bird. I think that's such a good symbol for this conversation, because ultimately all of this, so much of this, it's all tied together in that it's a constant trying to be open, not forcing it, not being like, oh, that must be because of something from my childhood. And, you know, it's not always that, but to be open, to be surprised, even like for you guys 38 years later, like, you know, I think there's something about, like I was listening to something recently with marriage saying that ultimately it's honoring and knowing the other person's story and continuing to learn their story, and you're learning more of your story because God will reveal in layers. Like we can't expedite that process. We're not always ready and able to just heal all the things at once, as much as I wish that we could do that. And so you could be a grown adult and you could have been in counseling for how long and had the best mentors, and then all of a sudden something surfaces and you realize, you know, God is saying, hey, this is time. I want to work with you here from when you were 3 or when you were, you know, and it's like, wait, what? Like, what? And so going into communication, I think, you know, we can't overlook the importance of continuing to come before the Lord with open hands, mind, heart, to say, okay, God, what do you want to reveal to me about who you are, about who I am, about my story, why I work the way I work? Because as that has to be priority, because then as we're communicating or trying to communicate, right, then it's like, and it works or it doesn't work well with our partner, our friend, our spouse. It's like, well, yeah, why do I communicate this way? Or why, you know, why am I so triggered in that way? And so like for some people, I think of my own parents, you know, my dad, he comes from 9 siblings. It was a loud household. And so for him, communication is like, I mean, he's from East Coast. So you go at it, you're sarcastic, you're going to use names and you're going to be loud. You have to do that. That's how you communicate. And if you don't, like, you're going to die, basically. Like, it's like, you know, it's like the only way, you know, and you don't take it personal. You just, you know, this is the way it is. And my mom, like, she came from a very strong Irish background. It was a lot, quieter in a lot of ways in her house. And if you spoke critically about somebody, that would equal you don't love them. So you just don't speak critically. So when the two of them came together, like for a long time, it was a lot of bumping heads when it comes to communication. And so I think that, like, for Louie and I, as we continue to, I feel like a lot of it is this refinement, right, of learning our love languages, learning where we are, like you said, Pastor E, like with hormones. Is it just hormones? You know, like it might just be that. Is it lack of sleep? You know, why am I this way? Because sometimes it is. You can just chalk it up to that. But also being open to, is there something deeper here, and to giving God space I think what we're trying to work on, or at least for me, my big thing right now in this season and time of my life is I am it's very hard for me, and it's almost embarrassing like to say it, but it's not, because I feel like there's meaning and purpose in all the things, right? So the concept of I need to, because communication, it implies that someone is communicating and someone is receiving.
Right.
Right. And so it's not a monologue. And so for me, my homework over the past year or so has been learning how to participate in conversation and voice things that are uncomfortable for me to voice, that might arise conflict or disconnect. That's very scary to me. To do that, I will rather be quiet. But I've been reflecting a lot on the concept of peacemaking versus peacekeeping. And I'm good at peacekeeping. I'll stay quiet and I will not, because then there will be quote unquote peace.
Yeah.
However, it's an illusion, right? It's not true peace. And so to seek to really become a peacemaker, which I know the Lord is calling us to be peacemakers, then I need to be strong enough and vulnerable enough and trust the Lord enough that I'm going to lobby for truth. I'm going to speak truth, even if and when it's uncomfortable, even if it might arise a trigger or, but to do it in love, right? So it's always in love. And then to be able to receive what is how it's received or not received. I need to be able to receive even when it's uncomfortable, even when I don't like what I'm hearing, or there's a part of me that wants to run away or shut down emotionally. We cannot have true communication or fruitful communication if that's the case. And so I feel like for me right now where I am, God's trying to help me grow both. It's vulnerable and strength, right? It's like when we're weak, we're strong. That I'm going to share the things that are hard for me to share because it's not going to be well received maybe, but it's coming from a place of love. And then I need to be ready to receive the uncomfortable. And ultimately, I feel like when we've had those uncomfortable conversations, I feel like it's like, whoa, we just leveled up. Like,
exactly.
Raising our voices. It was hard. It was uncomfortable, but it was right. Like, that's the only way we can get to the next level. And we're stronger because of, being able to do that.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Go ahead. You finish.
Because just staying in the conversation. Staying in the conversation can bring so much healing. I saw Barbara say you made a statement, peacemaker versus peacekeeper. And then Sly had said, so should we change the word communicate to comprehending? I learned how to understand what your partner is trying to tell us without assuming we know what they're trying to say. Yes, that's what
no, we're not going to change the right, because comprehending is different from it's part of communication.
Yeah.
But how I communicate leads to your comprehension.
Right.
And if part of it when we are communicating, if I say something that you don't understand or don't make sense or it's confusing, then you should ask the question for clarity.
Did you mean to say that?
Right.
Did I hear you?
However, comprehending is I think when I say something or communicate something, I say it and you're going to comprehend it. That doesn't mean you comprehend.
It doesn't, because you say that, right?
And then I said, then I learned how to understand what my partner is trying to tell us within so the word understanding is another thing, right? So once I communicate and I do it clearly, then I look to you. Did you understand what I just said? If you said yes, then you stand under that.
I hear you.
Right.
Okay.
But understand. You stand under what you comprehend. But you cannot stand under what you don't comprehend because you don't know what it is.
That's good.
Right. So he used two powerful words. Now, part of I like to speak. I took public speaking and teach it. Right. So communication, comprehension, and understanding are byproducts of communicating. So again, when we, and there are many filters when I communicate.
Right.
There's cultural filters, there's gender filters, there's religious filters, background filters, upbringing filters. The number where you are as a child is a filter.
Mhm.
I think you said 1 of 9. That's what your dad came out of.
Yeah.
Right. That's a nice household, right?
Yeah.
Then the East Coast filter versus West Coast filter.
Right.
Because and then from the islands, we are very, we talk with our hands, right? We're not Italians, but we use our hands, and our voice get elevated, but does not mean we're angry, right? And somebody who comes from a very quiet home, right? And they see the hands of using the hand as something becoming offensive, or if you've been oppressed, or you came from a violent family, the hands will give you a trigger.
Yes.
So all of those things add to the learning. And again, that's why I think we're going back and learning what our value system, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Right, because what I value, what you value. I have to learn what you value. I have to learn why that is important to you, why so-and-so is important to me. And I think we don't spend enough time talking about those things. We assume.
That's a good one.
And then when you make that assumption and you're wrong, what is the damage that have been done in all those, like Mari, you did beautiful when you said you're a peacekeeper, right? Not a peacemaker. And so you say, I'm not going to touch that because it's going to cause a negative reaction, so I keep quiet. Well, because you kept quiet, what's the damage that has done to you? Does it shut down your voice? Yeah. Do you feel valueless? Do you feel marginalized, right? Those are damaging things. And so we have to allow that vulnerability, right? Versus defensive. I have to allow you to communicate to me, even if it is truthful, and I may take it offensively. My role is not to become defensive, it's to hear you out. And then after you say what you have to say, I now have to reflect on what you just said, right? And put it all together. And then before I respond, because sometimes we respond out of defensiveness.
True.
And then it negates everything that had just been done.
I love that. And Mara had touched on honoring.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we honor our spouses, our friendships, those in relationship, means a lot. Because when you honor, and I'm busy, if you're busy doing something, but I want something, and you stop what you're doing and you say, I hear you, I'm going to do that. That speaks a lot. That's honoring the person you love.
Can I use this little thing?
Okay.
Just a little thing. We drink a lot of water.
I love it.
Lemon and limes, whatever, right?
Yes.
And we cut it up and squeeze it and put it in, and then you add the water, and then it's good for 2 or 3 days. Yeah. Right. And I put it. So lately, I've just been making whole water.
Yes, he has, right? And I love it.
And so today she said, I want to thank you for that. I appreciate it. Now, I didn't do all of that for that. I just do it because I know she likes drinking the water. I like drinking the water. So when I make mine, I make hers. It was just a natural thing. But the reward for that, Louis, man, I'm good now. I got some money in the bank. Cha-ching, right? But it was not done for the appreciation. It was done because I know that's a value system.
And it felt good for you to be honored and communicate.
Well, thank you. I thanked her for that, but that was not my intent.
Yeah.
I think Louis had something.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything to add.
Okay. So now there's some good comments coming through the chat. Now.
Okay, it says it first went back up to Peacemaker, then Barbara said, oops, that helped me communicate so it can be comprehensive. Yes, for some of the hands can be offensive, right? And absolutely what you were saying, Bishop, she agreed.
Yeah.
So thank you for the dialogue that we have going on in the chat. I love it. Please keep it going.
Let me take one more area. Okay, so we have the environment, how we grew up, right?
Right.
Then it's a work environment.
There it is.
And sometimes that work environment spills over into our home environment. And I was guilty of that being in the military. I in the military, I'm the man. I got everything. I shout and everybody's heart stops.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
I give an order, everybody's moving. That's it. Right. Well, now I come home, I have that mentality. I'm going to say something. She's supposed to move. And it didn't work that way. It didn't work that way. And I got checked at the door. And you see, and when I got checked, it didn't feel good checked. But I didn't. When she caused me to get checked, I didn't understand why I was getting checked. because I was still in the mode of work. And we have to also watch how that works out and carries over.
And you got to use wisdom in how you do it.
I know that now.
Yeah, you have to use wisdom in what he was sharing. But as I was reminding him, okay, we're home and that's work. So let's transition. And I had to give him a model. How do you transition from that?
Yeah.
So in him say, go back out, then come back in and let's try it one more time. And doing that, it was like, okay, something said, all right, I am not at work now. I'm with my wife. She is not my, my, you know what I mean?
Right. But see, it was the way she did it. You know, I came home, and the other thing, I was trying to duplicate my parents' relationship, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I came home and said exactly what my father would say. They got tons of years on me, right? And that's not, she's not my mama.
Right.
And I came in and said exactly what my daddy did. And she's like, what? Hold up, stop, freeze, go back out and try this again. Now, Louis, the walk from the house outside was one of those most bewildering looks on my face, like, what in the world did just happen? Right? And I got outside, I'm going to be truthful. I got outside, I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? And then when I came back in the house, I still didn't know what I did wrong. All I knew is don't come back in the same way.
That's it.
That's all I did.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know what happened to this thing.
I don't know either. Okay. So we're gonna go on to our next thing in just a moment. I don't know how I lost my page that had my questions on it. So let's just dialogue a minute, and I'll pull that up.
See, time you pull it up.
It's coming.
Well,
So
while you pull that up, I
go ahead.
Spend a second. So right now, the readings at church for us are about Lazarus and the tomb. And I just wanted to say, you know, when we're talking about vulnerability, and we're just reflecting right now in the different ways we can envision that tomb, and specifically how the Bible has that word stench.
Right.
And so there's fear, there's a lot of things tied to us holding on or holding back from walking out of the tomb with our past because of that stench that it has. And so it was kind of for the Bible to emphasize that word. It could, you know, allow us to know that one, it's okay to already know that there's some stench to it, but still Jesus is saying, come out. And so he's not worried about that.
Okay.
And I think that that's a beautiful and powerful thing that we could even bring in terms of talking about communication and the willingness to desire that double vision that would have us just bringing that, what we personally, like, I could feel like it has stench, but she's that Holy Spirit living in her, calling it out of me to say, come out.
All right.
I, the same way to her, like, just come out already, and let's work on it together so we can be able to communicate.
Let me
stronger.
unbind you, right?
Yes.
Bind you, because
come forth.
Jesus, I've been talking with Elsie a lot, our 8-year-old, to try to, you guys know I'm college age and up. So it's hard for me to make sense of these things with her, and I can overcomplicate everything. But I've been trying to work on it. And so I said, well, Elsie, why doesn't Jesus just, could he just roll away the tomb, the rock by himself, the stone? Like, could he just say, come out, and then boom, he, like, all the binding and everything is undone? So why doesn't he? Right. And to be able to sit with that, and how in marriage specifically, but in like close relationships with your faith friends that, you're walking with, you're journeying with, I think that's a beautiful thing within our marriage, is the power of healing that God has in store for us. Right.
Yes.
That it's for, like, I have the humble opportunity and honor to help, like he was saying, for God to use me so that I can say, like, I'm not afraid of this, and let me unbind you, because it goes to that intimacy, right?
Right.
There you go.
Right.
That intimacy, it's something that we have buried, these parts of our hearts, of our stories that are buried, and we're afraid, like we're like, oh, it's gonna be stinky, I don't even want to deal with that. And so again, those kind of things, when we're blind to it, we become blind, we forget, we're into not, we like, it's so suppressed. Those are blockers to our ability to receive love, and then that is going to actually get in the way of our communication, and we don't even know what's wrong, you know. So another little.
Now, I want to go right there with that vein, and I hit this real quickly. And Myra raised it up, and your 8-year-old raised the question: why didn't he not just roll the stone away? Number one, he didn't put it there. Jesus said, "You roll away the stone." In other words, you put it there, you move it back, right? And I think sometimes we need to identify the people who put those stones in our way, those boulders in the way, because they are playing a part in our intimate role. Oh, we moved them, we lost them.
Okay, no,
okay, they're back. Okay. We're losing. We're fighting the battle, and the people that we need to have the conversation with is not in the room, right? Oh, and they put a stone. They rolled a stone there, and your partner is paying the price for the stone that she didn't roll in, or he didn't pull in there. And I think that's really critical that we understand. Jesus didn't try and move the stone. He said, "Show me where you laid it, and then you roll the stone." Right? Wow. One, you got to identify where you put it, and now since you put it there, you now take ownership and move that stone. And I say that in a very loving way. Sometimes our parents have put stones in us that are hindrance to our growth. It worked for them, but it's not working for us, right? But we're still hanging on, and we're fighting. And I'm gonna use something very, very simple. It has nothing to do with my parents, has everything to do with my birth order, being the youngest, right? Always having somebody's hand-me-down, right? That's a stone. Because now I don't like hand-me-down clothes. I want my own, right? And I don't use my stuff. It's mine. Well, when I had hair, my stone was a hairbrush, and I hated when they used my brush. It was man, I would go from a 1 to a 10 like that over a brush, right? Because that was a stone to identify.
You know what? That goes right into our next question. Awesome.
Yes, it does.
I love that.
That's why I went there.
There you go.
I'm smart that way.
You're just
I'm
wise.
fabulous.
You
and I'm still profound.
You are. What comes to mind when you hear the word emotional intimacy? And I think how you just segmented that into that, because the emotions, the things that we're dealing with, and it could just be something right now that's going on. It just, but being mindful of the emotional intimacy of the person, and being, Louis, you had said something earlier, and you said as far as prayer, having that consistency. I may be going through a hard time. I can use, like when I was going through cancer, for instance, certain things, and it may be in pain, or it could be we're just going through anything, but certain things could trigger. But being there, your just consistency in holding me, your consistency of saying, "Are you okay?" Your consistency of saying, "I'm here." You don't have to worry about. You don't have to. I'm not leaving anywhere. I got you. That says a lot when you're going through. When you think about emotional intimacy, it may be a hard time in a relationship, but just you saying, "I've got you." That, oh my gosh, it brings value. It brings energy. It shows the sacrifice that you're going to give to a person. That the trust. That I can trust you, even though I might be in a hard place.
But and also for me, the emotional intimacy allows us to have that space of vulnerability.
Right? It goes back to that.
And it does go back. And for me, I can't speak for Louis and Myra, because once I am emotionally secured in where I am in you and us together, I can now become vulnerable. Yeah. Right. But if I'm not emotionally secure in myself,
yes,
and emotionally secure in my relationship, now everything you say that's negative, in my mind, it responded with a negative response, right? I now have to become defensive because if I don't become defensive, you now tread into my areas of where I don't want the landmines, right? So therefore, I put landmines to protect a certain area I don't want you to touch. And then, so Louis, you mentioned anger. I think for us men, the emotions that is very acceptable in many of our cultures is anger. Oh, look at that man, he's angry. Oh, well, that's the man, right? But man, we start crying. Oh, whoa, that's a whole different story. Yeah. We were talking this morning at Sunday school. I brought up this little funny scenario. Women could be you go to a lunch dinner, all these women out there, right? Oh, yeah. One woman goes to the bathroom and everybody's going to the bathroom.
All the ladies.
All the ladies go.
We have a conversation in the bathroom.
They have a conversation. Now, us men, we sit at the table and talk about sports and weather till you come back. But I've yet to hear a man say, "Hey, Trev, I'm going to the bathroom. You want to come with me?" It don't happen. It don't happen, right? And if you do, I'm going to look funny at you, right? Yeah. Because that's a barrier. Right. But man, could we get to that place where we come vulnerable and say, "Hey, Trev, I need to talk to you about something. Can we step outside or we go to the bathroom?" Man, I think we'll go outside first, though.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
But that's good. But that's really true. Being in that vulnerable place.
Yes.
So emotional intimacy. Anybody else?
Why is the toilet? Why is the restroom so vulnerable? Because it's a place of private issues are out there, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to get there. I don't want to talk about. And if I get in the bathroom, we talk at the sink. We ain't gonna talk anything else. Anyway, I just throw that out there.
And you know what, though, before we transition, as you said that, when you go into the restroom and you share women is intimacy. I remember I showed my scar.
I remember that.
And it's a place where you don't mind revealing to someone that you believe that you're helping, or just getting that camaraderie. When you're in there, you just build that sisterhood. It's just a sisterhood type of thing.
Okay, here's another funny situation, right? I have arthritis in my lower back, and we travel back and forth to Houston quite a bit back in whatever before COVID. Anyway, so Elder Owens was traveling with us, and I didn't put my patch on until we get to Bucky, right? So I'm in the restroom and I put my shirt up and he's like, "Wait, tell me where it hurts." And he's poking. I said, "Not there, right there." "Yeah, right there it hurts." And I put a patch on. And so I came back and my wife said, "Why didn't you go in the stall?" I said, "Oh, right, well, look at that conversation. Two men in the stall. Is it here? Is it there? Is it there? Oh, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, right?" She said, "I didn't think about that." I said, "I did," right? Because it's what? That's an environment that men are not comfortable being in.
Yeah. Pastor Sheila says showing scars on a need to know basis. Yeah, you can't show your scars to everybody. That's so true. You on a need to know. Or how do men feel? That's good.
Yeah. So Barbara's in tears. Barbara, tell it, it's true. It's a true scenario.
Yeah. So Myra, Louis, what do you think about emotional intimacy? And then we'll change over to about date night. At the time. Yeah.
I'll say a couple quick things and pass it over to Mara. In terms of emotional intimacy, I just agree, Bishop, with what you said in terms of focusing on that self-secureness. Because again, it goes back to yourself, even on the vulnerability piece. So I'll leave it there because I know Mara's going to touch on some other things. But in terms of touching on the sharing, I think that we can also, if we're not careful, fall into instant gratification, which I suffer from, to share with those that it's easy to share with.
Oh, that's good.
They're not going to necessarily challenge you to grow. And so if you find yourself sharing more consistently with those type of people, I would challenge you to, just like I try to challenge myself, to say, okay, let me bring this to Bishop. Because if I bring this to him, then I know that it's not going to be a one and done conversation or like a 30-minute conversation. Yeah. It's likely going to result in me doing some harder reflection, some
homework,
some, whatever the dynamic could be. and that's deferred gratification, because out of that sharing, we're going to grow inevitably
Right.
when you're sharing in the right way. So Lana.
So just a few things. So one thing that I've been has come up a lot, specifically since counseling, has been the concept of head to heart, right?
It's
Is
the
what
heart.
a counselor will say, like a lot of her work is trying to help people to have both of their highways clear. So like she'll say, like, some people they're really in their head and it's really hard to get to their heart. Some people they're in their heart, like that's their, but they can't get to their head. So she wants to be able to, that's like a skill, you know, and it's a lot of interior work to be able to get to that point where it's like, okay, you are in your head, I need you to speak from your heart, or you're in your heart, I need you to access your head. And so I think that that's one of those, like, let's remember that, and then we can go into emotional intimacy, because otherwise it's like people don't understand because they're actually in their head and they don't know why they can't emotionally connect. So we actually need her to give us examples. We've needed her, and I'm quality time, emotional intimacy. And even for me, like, I was like, can you give me more examples? Because she'll ask a question and it's just the default to a certain question might be like, okay, how was your day? Right? It's simple. Like, this is a great exercise. How was your day? And then see how someone responds. See how you respond. If you go through the, like, this is what happened, this is what, and then this is like all logistics or the actual, like, then it's your head, you're in your head. And that's okay, but that's not emotional intimacy. So that's sharing, that's communicating. It's not emotional intimacy. And so it's like, okay, so then we asked her, like, okay, we need an example. So she said, okay, this will be like the facts, stating the facts. These are the circumstances. This would be emotional sharing. So from the heart. So when I took my took this person to this appointment, this is how I was feeling. And this is what was going on in my heart. And then I was getting frustrated. And then I felt bad that I was getting frustrated. And that's a totally different type of connection.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times we're not even aware. And then we're feeling this huge void or this huge deficit, or, oh, we're not connecting like we used to, whatever. And we might have that's what it is. We're not emotionally connecting. So there's this book, and I haven't read through all of it. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Be Devoted.
Okay.
It's by Dr. Bob Schuchts, who I have so much respect for. He has a great story. He's very helpful, and he talks about a lot, but there's connecting emotionally. He has a section here, and he said that according to Dr. Greg Popchak, who's another one that I really appreciate and listen to and read, a small number of married couples experience this level of intimacy most of the time. In these exceptional 7% of married couples, husbands and wives maintain a high level of emotional empathy, and then talks about emotional intimacy, emotionally connecting. And he cites Proverbs 17:22 and Nehemiah 8:10, which I need to look up, but just in case somebody wants to look that up. And then he talks about barriers to emotional intimacy and how unhealed emotional wounds is so big, and lack of forgiveness, right? And so I think all of it's not as easy, right? And yet it's definitely worthy homework. Like it's worth it. The hard day in and day out, like, okay, man, that was hard. I still don't know how to emotionally connect. I'm trying. But the effort is so worth it, because the hope, right, in the prayer is that with God's grace and God's help, that we'll learn how to then communicate, right? Communicate and connect in the different ways. And emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, spiritual, like, you can't choose one. They're all important, and if you don't have one as strong, everything else is going to be affected.
That's good.
Myra took me back to my CPE classes, my clinical pastoral classes, talk about head to heart, but then there's one other step, hands to do. Because once I translate it, put it to my heart, now I got to take what I learned from my heart and do something. My hands is a physical doing, right? So it's heart, head, heart, hands, and I think that is so critical. But you mentioned, Myra, is that emotional intimacy is the feeling words, right? And I remember in CPE when we would write these process papers and had all these wonderful words. I felt happy, right? And then the supervisor will say, describe this happiness.
Yeah.
Like, hold up. Now you pushing me to talk about, I just gave you what I felt. No. Why did you feel happy? Why did it cause this emotion out of you? Man, I those of us who's ever done clinical pastoral education, we hate the process papers, but it's really beneficial because it pushes you to understand what emotion really is and where's it coming from. And you just can't use the word and think everybody knows what it means. No. They may know, but why is it that for you? And why did you use that particular word and not that word? I'm like, because I didn't know how to spell it. No.
But you know what? As you guys were talking, that we can really just dive into that. But I just want to use the word vest. Invest means that we value, we have the energy, we sacrifice, and we trust when we deal with emotional intimacy. So it's steps, there's processes. You said from the head to the heart to the hand. So I have to value that person that I'm listening to, that I'm going to get out of my heart, and I'm going to feel and share. I'm going to have the energy to be transparent. I'm going to sacrifice whatever that may be. And then I'm going to trust that you trust me to share that, and that we're able to grow. We're elevating in our relationship. So when I do that, I'm saying I'm taking this to the next level. Anything in a relationship is work. The things we've been talking today, it's work. 9 years, they're going through 38 years, 34 years. It's work, but it's worth doing. It's work worth having. The benefit of it. Oh my goodness. And so for those who are on, if you go ahead and like, tag, and share, let someone know about this, how we have been elevating our relationships. And I didn't know that time has gone on that much. This has been good. So we're going to close with words of wisdom. In our words of wisdom, you may want to just share something fun about a dating thing that has helped you, or whatever your words of wisdom to those who are on. I want to say thank you so much. I'm going to have you guys start, and we'll close with the words of wisdom. And Bishop, if you close us out in prayer.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
What is it? Fun date night?
What? So
any type of words of wisdom, because we're running out of time. Yes.
Okay, so the only thing I was gonna say, because we need to hear all the fun date night ideas over here. But one thing that I think both of us have been really trying to work on, one of the many things, is beating the all or nothing. And so that's something that's been really helpful to keep reminding each other, because we'll fall into it without realizing. So like we might want, for example, a date to look like a certain way, or whatever, to look a certain way. And if it's not going to look like that, then forget it, right? We're not going to do it. And we just will not have a successful, however you define that, a strong, fun, like abundant relationship, marriage, family life if we live that way. And so we're trying to get better at, like, we just went to a function last night. We had Santos. We knew we were only going to we had a limited amount of time. And so in the past, I might have been like, well, then forget it, because I want to stay for the whole time. I don't want to go for just a little bit. That's a teaser. But no, we're going, and then we're going to make the most of it. So there was music playing. There was no one on the dance floor. We're like, let's go dance. We got to get the dance in, because, it's like, we don't know if he's going to make us leave even earlier. It was an adult function, right? And so, like, if you have a new baby and you're like, oh, I just can't go out. Well, no, go. And then you get your food to go. And if the baby's still sleeping, eat the food there until the baby gets crazy. And then it's already in the to-go containers and you go. So I think trying to get more creative with and asking for God's inspiration, right? The Holy Spirit's inspiration to how can we look at this differently? How can we think of this differently so that we're still connecting, we're still having fun, but even in the midst of these circumstances, if somebody's sick or if, these different things happen, not to totally just throw it all down the drain.
Can I just add this, Rick? I know time is there. One of our favorite pastimes, especially in Europe, was to ride the trains.
Yeah.
Just get on the train and ride a train, right? Now, we don't have a good train system around here, but we do have a nice long drive. Getting our cars and just driving. Don't have a particular destination, just drive. And there's some beautiful, we went to Bernie yesterday. There's beautiful scenery going up there. Had a great time. And we went there for a purpose. But anyway, that drive, 45-minute drive there, 45-minute drive back, it was wonderful. Sometimes just going on a drive with no particular destination, just drive.
And you can drive to Austin for $25 round trip.
Yeah, the train.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a suggestion. Louis, did you want to say anything?
No, I agree. The all or nothing. That's amazing.
All right. And I'll do words of wisdom. Great panel tonight. I truly enjoyed the guests. Thank y'all so much for staying on. Words of wisdom. I would say to you, be intentional to elevate your relationship. In anything, it's work. Yes, it is, but it's fun. It's worth it. I enjoy being married to this man. Yes, we may have our challenges at times, or we call it intense fellowship. We don't have that much now. That was younger years. But it's worth having fun. If it's watching a movie and popping popcorn and whatever. I like to you said what type of date nights, what's a good date night thing? Since you have children, is popcorn and a movie, going out to the river walk, going just somewhere and walking. We used to walk our dogs around the block and just holding hands. Things don't have to cost a lot of money. It's the thing about is having quality time. That was my word when we were, and you know what, not just having time, but make it quality, make it sure that you're present with me when you're here. You're not busy doing something else, but you're present with the person that you're with. So that would be my words of wisdom. Let the person know that you see them, you hear them, you enjoy their presence, and you want to spend that quality time with them, laughing, whatever that may be. So just have fun with it. And if you're able to go to a hotel somewhere different that you never went before, we like to do that. We like to go to different hotels.
I'm gonna have one quick word of wisdom, and Louis triggered this. Don't be so wrapped so tight.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And loosen up. It's okay. And I got no. I don't have to fight to win no more. I don't have to win any arguments. Right. We just okay. Whatever you right. We're good. Let's move on. Right. Because they was part of my defense is I got to win.
Yeah.
I don't have to win everything no more. So just have fun, and it's good to take the high
road instead of going low.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm working on that, Byron. I'm working on go high. All right.
Would you pray for us, please?
Okay. So, Father, in the name of Jesus, we are thankful and grateful for this opportunity once again. Oh, as we come to the end of this broadcast, and it's number 119. Lord, it just seems like it just yesterday we started this, but we pray for those that tuned in and those that will watch this at a later time this week, that something will be said that would trigger, that would help these couples. That don't even have to be a couple. That something will be said that will help somebody that's thinking about going into a relationship, that has some substance, that add to their foundation. So when they get to that relationship, they have an idea what they're looking for. And we thank you for the married couple and the dating couples that tuned in. We pray, God, that they were blessed by the conversation on tonight. And we thank you for Louis, and we thank you for Mary, thank you for the whole family, God, that we pronounce blessings upon that family, that a home be always filled with peace and joy, love and happiness, and let the home never experience lack. Let it always be a beaming example to all those that they look upon, those that they know and those that they don't know, that is looking on, the ones that we're mentoring from a distance, that our life will become an example for them to latch on to and say, I don't know you, but you've been a blessing to me. This we pray and ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So thank you again for being with us. I am Overseer M. Alexander. Join us next week at 6 p.m. for Words for the Soul.
Number 120.
120. Be blessed. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Santos, tell Nico and Elsie we said hello.
All right.